and he had kids. His kids, his kids is my step kids.
Yes, these people call me. What y'all call me? A flip flopper?
Y'all ready to blow this joint?
Yes, let's go.
They be mad about nothing. Girl, it's my stepdaughter. What the fuck you want me to do about it? He just showed up and he had kids. His kids is my step kids.
So today we are talking about Clarissa Shields, surprise, surprise, aka Pap's alleged mistress, aka Pap's entanglement, aka Pap's pick-me, aka Pap's side chick, or as Chris Cyborg would probably say, it's officially duck hunting season. And this is exactly where the problem starts, you guys, because when somebody becomes addicted to social media, this is what can happen. When you're chronically online, constantly watching the comments, reacting to every post, and living for attention, eventually it starts looking like the internet is running your life. And when you attach yourself to another person, mainly because of what you believe that relationship can give you, whether that's money, followers, attention, connections, access to celebrities, access to exclusive rooms, or simply more clout, you know what I'm saying? Then people are naturally going to start questioning the motivation behind it all, you guys. But wait a minute, am I actually talking about Clarissa Shields here, or am I talking about Pop's family? You know what I'm saying? At this point, I honestly don't even know, because the lines are getting harder and harder to separate. We already have one daughter, right, Chanel, who is supposedly the creative director and is clearly trying to push those lip glosses. And listen, her lip gloss may actually be good, it may be poppin', right? But they're doing all these photo shoots and trying to make this whole thing happen for Clarissa Shields, because according to this commentary, the major brand deals just aren't there. No Nike, no Adidas, no Secret, no Degree, no Powerade, no Gatorade, no Band-Aid, you know what I'm saying? So ultimately, you have to work with whatever opportunity is available. And apparently, the main thing being pushed again and again is Pap's daughter's lip gloss. And now it appears that after getting some money from the previous round, they were at least able to repackage the same products and reintroduce them under this whole luxury branding concept, with the timing conveniently lining up with the fight in just a couple of days. Meanwhile, Pop is still promoting his music, trying to convince everybody that the classics and throwbacks prove he's still that guy. But the question remains, where are the new hits? You know what I'm saying? Where is the record everybody is actually running to stream? And now it looks like another one of Pap's daughters is getting involved as well, especially with the fight only a couple of days away. And Clarissa seems to believe that Pap's family genuinely loves her, genuinely supports her, and genuinely enjoys everything surrounding this relationship, including the alleged online clashes, the comments, and the moments where she has been accused of disrespecting other black women online. She seems convinced that they're completely happy with the person Pap has chosen to publicly stand beside. But if you actually believe that every single person in that family is thrilled about all of this, I've got a bridge to sell you, because that assumption deserves a serious reality check. So there are a couple of short clips, courtesy of Live Bites, that I want to react to, and we're going to break down what was actually said and what it could mean, because trust me, there's more here than meets the eye. So let's take a look and listen.
Showed up and he had kids. His kids is my step kids.
Yes, these people call me. What y'all call me? A flip flopper?
Y'all ready to blow this joint?
Yes, let's go.
They be mad about nothing. Girl, it's my stepdaughter. What the fuck you want me to do about it? He just showed up and he had kids. His kids is my step kids.
Not the kids walking around with Remy tattoos on their arms being called your stepkids, Clarissa, because somebody needs to make that make sense. And this is exactly the issue, right? Legally speaking, these are not your stepkids, because technically they still have a stepmother. And that distinction matters when people start presenting a relationship online as something it may not legally be. You seem to believe that being close to Pap, his children, and his family automatically puts you in the inner circle like Times Square. But the reality is that Pap has had years, both publicly and reportedly privately, to actually finalize the divorce from Remy Ma. Remy has said from the beginning that she and her attorney sent the paperwork over to Pap for him to sign, that she wasn't asking him for anything, and that he still refused to sign. She even reportedly offered to pay for an attorney for him, and according to her account, he still wouldn't sign. It was only after that highly criticized appearance and everything surrounding his time on the Breakfast Club that he made what was described as a divorce filing. But here's the question nobody should be afraid to ask. Where are the completed divorce proceedings? Where is the final divorce decree proving Pap is legally single? Because without that final legal step, filing for divorce does not automatically make somebody divorced, and that is the part people keep conveniently skipping over. Maybe the reason is money, maybe it's the ongoing dispute over what he believes he is entitled to from Remy's earnings, maybe it's because he doesn't want to eventually marry Clarissa, or maybe, just maybe, he still has unresolved feelings about his wife and has realized that the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. Because whatever the reason may be, the public fallout has clearly created more questions than answers, and his reputation has taken plenty of criticism along the way. But again, Pap is a grown man, and he knows exactly what choices he is making, so I don't feel sorry for him or Clarissa when it comes to the decisions they've publicly made. If Clarissa knowingly became involved with a man who was still legally married, then people are naturally going to question why she's surprised by the backlash when she responds with, "They're just hating, they're always mad." But let's actually talk about the children and the woman you are calling their stepmother. Because the real stepmother in this situation has been Remy Ma, and you were reportedly in her DMs trying to establish a relationship with her. You were the one presenting yourself as her friend, calling her sis, wishing her happy birthday, staying in the likes, and engaging with her posts, all while the surrounding relationship was developing. And from the outside, it certainly looked like you were paying extremely close attention to this woman's life. Perhaps you convinced yourself that you could eventually become wife number 2 for Pap, and if the legal part couldn't happen immediately, you could at least present yourself publicly as though you had already stepped into that role, which is where the situation gets especially strange. Because this is often what happens when someone gets emotionally invested in a relationship that involves a married person. The husband can spend countless hours talking about his wife, complaining about the marriage, promising that things are over, and making the outside woman believe she's next in line. But instead of treating all those conversations as a giant red flag, you have to recognize the warning signs and ask yourself whether this is actually a situation you should be entering. You have to be willing to say, maybe this isn't a good look. Maybe this man is still emotionally attached to his wife, and maybe I should step away until he resolves that marriage or gets officially divorced. Because once again, filing for divorce does not mean you're already divorced, Clarissa, and calling these children your stepkids doesn't change the legal or family reality either. So when was the last time you actually spent time with these kids? Because most of what we've publicly seen has centered around Chanel, but suddenly the rest of the children appear to be around as the fight gets closer and the promotional machine starts getting louder. And obviously there is a major fight coming up in just a couple of days, with celebrities and athletes being promoted all over the place, including Floyd Mayweather, Kevin Gates, Lotto, Johnny Blaze, Zeus Network personalities, Love and Hip Hop connections, OnlyFans personalities, and seemingly everybody else who might show up. Everybody is supposed to be in the building, right? But here's where the numbers start raising eyebrows, because if the event is surrounded by all this celebrity attention, why do the ticket sale conversations still seem so important? So conveniently, we're now seeing more of Pap's children around the situation, because according to the commentary, everybody is expecting to cross paths with Black Hollywood this Saturday. Let me tell you something, Black Hollywood is definitely going to be outside, and the guest list is going to be part of the spectacle. But my question is simple. If those Remy tattoos are such a problem, why not cover them up, change the presentation, or even get them removed if that's what everybody wants? Because leave it to Clarissa, and the story becomes that Pap is this self-made multi-millionaire with all this money and all these accomplishments. But if that's the case, then people are naturally going to ask why there would be a dispute over receiving a portion of his wife's earnings in the first place. Or could that dispute, as some critics speculate, be another reason the marriage remains unresolved, because Pap knows Remy isn't simply going to hand over what he wants? We're talking about the same woman who reportedly fired him as her manager, the same woman whose public disputes with him exposed serious questions about their finances and jewelry, the same situation where basic expenses were allegedly an issue, and the same household dynamic where he reportedly had belongings and clothing at Remy's home. But Clarissa may have been operating from a completely different picture of Pap, especially if she became attached to the version of Pap and Remy that audiences watched on Love and Hip Hop. That may have been the version of Pap she thought she was getting, the one she imagined could create some big public love story and turn their relationship into a brand built around black love, golden love, or some supposedly unbreakable kind of love. But there is one major problem with that fantasy. You cannot build a clean public image around a relationship that still involves a legally married man and expect everybody to ignore the contradiction. Eventually, the backlash is going to come, and people are going to question every part of the story. That's why somebody like Lotto gets dragged into these conversations, and those of you who watch my love and marriage Huntsmill coverage already understand why Martel's alleged side relationship continues to become part of the discussion. And another major issue is the way Remy Ma continues to be dragged into the conversation through claims about Easy the Block Captain, even when that situation has reportedly moved on. Because at some point, people start wondering whether all of that whataboutism is simply being used to redirect attention away from the criticism you're receiving. You want to point at somebody else, so people spend less time looking at what you're doing. But until Pap is legally single, the public is going to continue using the language associated with his marital status, especially when the leaked messages have been presented as evidence that Clarissa knew he was married. And if those messages are accurately represented, then the allegations that she was asking a married man for a second phone so they could continue communicating behind his wife's back make the situation even more complicated. So once again, somebody needs to make it make sense, because the timeline, marriage, the divorce filing, the children, and the leaked messages are all raising questions that cannot simply be dismissed by calling everybody a hater. Please, somebody make it make sense, because I genuinely feel like Clarissa is going to ride this relationship until the wheels completely fall off. At this point, it may have to be Pap himself who finally decides to walk away from Clarissa. I know she said during the Cam interview that she usually moves on every 3 years, but here's the reality. This is arguably the biggest name she has ever been romantically connected to, so I don't see her willingly walking away from this anytime soon. And there's another layer to this whole situation, because both Clarissa and Pap seem to benefit from staying connected to Remy Ma, even when that connection is negative. Because Remy Ma is basically the female algorithm of hip-hop, and simply being attached to her name keeps people talking. It keeps them in the blogs, it keeps their names circulating, and every time Remy has something happening, whether it's a new song, a new project, a new interview, or even a new movie, suddenly here comes Clarissa and here comes Pap. The moment Remy Ma gets announced for a remix, releases another single, or has anything significant happening, Pap somehow finds a reason to remind everybody of their history, while Clarissa suddenly goes on another posting spree. Then they turn around during interviews and act confused about why people continue connecting Pap and Remy, like the public is somehow creating this association out of nowhere. But do you know why that connection still exists? Part of the reason is actually your own doing. Pap, if you wanted this chapter completely closed, you had years to finalize the divorce and move forward with your life. I'm sorry, but there are plenty of men, successful or struggling, who will do whatever it takes to end a marriage when they are genuinely determined to walk away. They would rather start over from nothing than remain trapped in a marriage they truly want to escape. So if Pap is supposedly that miserable and supposedly that finished with Remy, then his actions are telling a very different story. Pap is essentially showing you that he is not completely finished with Remy, and perhaps in his own mind, he still believes he can somehow reverse the situation because he has cheated before and eventually found his way back. But this time is completely different because the alleged behavior isn't happening quietly behind closed doors anymore. This time, the disrespect has become public and everybody is watching. So in Pop's mind, perhaps he doesn't want to give Remy the clean divorce she is asking for because his ego is bruised and he can't accept that this time she may actually refuse to take him back. Maybe that's the difference this time around. There isn't a brand to protect, there isn't a carefully managed public image to preserve, and there isn't the same incentive for Remy to quietly move past everything. He tried to play the victim when the Easy the Block Captain situation became public, but let's be honest about what happened afterward. You didn't leave Remy, you didn't finalize the divorce, and you continued remaining around her. You were reportedly still sleeping on her couch, so what exactly does that tell us? To me, it suggests that whatever happened still wasn't enough for you to completely walk away, especially if you already knew there had been multiple instances where you allegedly cheated and betrayed her trust. So ultimately, Clarissa, instead of directing all that anger toward Remy or everybody watching from the outside, maybe redirect some of that energy toward the married man you're involved with. And of course, now the rest of Pap's children suddenly appear just a couple of days before your Atlanta fight, and I'm sitting here asking the obvious question, where have they been this entire time? Seriously, where have they been, you guys? Because from what we've publicly seen, the last major appearance I remember was around Pap's birthday back in March. So now you're trying to sell this whole narrative of these are my stepkids, we're all one big family. But if that's really the relationship, why aren't these children consistently around you, bonding with you, or simply spending normal time with you unless there's something major happening? It starts looking like everybody shows up when there are lights, cameras, celebrities, and a big event attached, just like their father. And that's where the whole thing becomes a flip-flop situation, because as I said, we don't regularly see these kids around you during ordinary moments, but suddenly they're present when the spotlight gets turned on. And then you have the other daughter trying to build her own brand, using Clarissa's audience and the attention Clarissa receives from being constantly discussed online, even when that attention comes from controversy, to push her lip gloss. As for the rest of the children, apparently they're going to be around whenever there's a major fight, whenever celebrities are expected to show up, and whenever there's an opportunity to sit ringside and be part of the spectacle. But Clarissa, that's not necessarily the flex you think it is, because where are these kids on a completely ordinary Tuesday? Where are they on a random weekend when there isn't a fight, a celebrity event, or cameras everywhere? I don't see them consistently showing up simply because they want to spend time with you and build that family bond. And now the obvious question becomes, who actually paid for those flights to Atlanta? Was it you or was it Pop?